Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. You know, we know today so much more than we did a year and a half ago when the SEC asshats sued Ripple claiming that they sold XRP as an unregistered security. So what was the SEC's real plan from the beginning? Why were so many top executives so gung-ho to sue Ripple into oblivion, harming XRP holders, and they knew that was coming, all the while they're just on their way out the door? With all of the information now, can we glean additional insight into why these pricks were doing what they were doing? I think the answer is yes. And it has to do with personal profit motives. I want to share with you some of the latest thoughts from attorney John Deaton and some of my own along the way. And then there was also this headline. Lots of crypto media news outlets covered this. What I have on your screen here now is from Watcher News. And this is titled, "Ethereum is a Security, MicroStrategy's CEO Says." So, of course, we're talking about none other than Bitcoin maximalist Michael Saylor, who has just bought an ungodly amount of Bitcoin. He thinks every other coin, the roughly 20,000 coins in existence, the rest of them are garbage. All we need is Bitcoin. We should have stopped even trying to innovate. I mean, that's how maximalists think about this. He could not be more wrong about this, though, his approach. And I want to take some of his ideas to task on how he's justifying his position that Ethereum is a security. Because, look, I'll tell you this. I hold Bitcoin, I hold Ethereum, I hold XRP, and a lot of other cryptocurrencies. I've actually been holding Bitcoin and Ethereum longer than I've been holding XRP. And that, for me, by the way, dates back to 2017. That's when I jumped into crypto here. I am not a maximalist, and I don't want Bitcoin to be attacked by the SEC. I don't want Ethereum to be attacked by the SEC, and it's unfortunate that XRP has been attacked by the SEC. But I don't need this type of nonsense speak coming from one of the most well-known and vocal voices in all of crypto, just effectively crapping on the rest of every other asset that everybody holds, because this is extremely counterproductive. But when you've got your ideology and you just want your way, you start to say things that don't make a whole lot of damn sense sometimes. That's why, to me, I value above all else just intellectual honesty. You know, if you just want Bitcoin to be number one and crush all, fine, but at least do what you can to ensure a level playing field, and just be honest in terms of how you analytically think through this stuff. But man, if you really can't see, I just can't imagine, you really can't see that there could be any actual value, which is different than price, by the way, any value in any other crypto ever. You really can't see that, Michael Saylor. It's astonishing stuff. But before going any further, do want to be clear, I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, in we go. And so this is from attorney John Deaton just the other day. And when you package all the stuff that we know just like this, it really does help to just kind of hit home at this point that these people at the SEC, there clearly are reasons that they did this that they are not being honest about, so far as I'm concerned anyway. And so all we can do is speculate, but look at what who they charged, of course, the executives at Ripple and Ripple the company, and then look at what they did after they left. And so here's what attorney Deaton had to say. And he's referencing here Joseph Grunfest in this first tweet here, who is a former SEC commissioner. So that means he was one of the 5 people, I believe for several years, he's one of the 5 people that was able to vote on whether or not to bring legal actions against individuals and businesses. And it's just so funny if we just had like a little bit of a different makeup in terms of who happened to have been commissioners at the time that Clayton was running the SEC. It might have been the case that the vote would have resulted in a decision by the SEC to not bring action against Ripple. Just depends on who's in charge. So it's 5 humans. 5 humans. That's it. That's all it took. 5 humans in the country, and now we have to deal with this. And there's all this fallout and tens of thousands of XRP holders being harmed. Who are being represented? I mean, let's be real. It's actually millions of people being harmed. But in terms of the ones that are now being represented by attorney Deaton in the case, yeah, that's still staggering. Anyway, so attorney Deaton says, I recommend rereading the Grunfest letter now that we know so much more. It is very enlightening to reread the letter now that we have much more context and knowledge about the lawsuit and why and how it was filed. A few more things will jump out at you. For example, When Grunfest discusses the mass exodus of the senior leadership at the SEC after filing the case, he also notes, quote, "The directors of the divisions of enforcement, corporate finance, and trading in markets have all been deeply involved in the decision to file suit." End quote. And then Attorney Deaton continues, "Deeply involved" says a lot. It means these people were the ones pushing for the lawsuit as they were walking out the SEC's door forever. Think about that for a minute. Why would these individuals push the most significant non-fraud SEC enforcement action since Howey and leave? Who are we talking about? Who left? And he's got a list here. Clayton, the chairman, Hinman, director of corporation finance, Mark Berger, director of enforcement, and Bruce Redfern, director of trading and markets. So these are key people at the top. And so even though it's the case that only out of those four listed, only Clayton was able to vote, he's one of the 5 votes actually, these people have strong influence, obviously, on their coworkers, the people at the top, obviously, including commissioners. So it doesn't mean necessarily that the commissioners like Hester Peirce, for example, and Eli Roisman, it doesn't mean they weren't free thinking. I mean, they seem to have been the ones that actually voted against bringing the lawsuit against Ripple. But still, these people were pushing for this, and they got what they wanted. Attorney Deaton continues. Clayton's firm Sullivan and Cromwell represented Consensus and Joseph Lubin and brokered the Quorum JP Morgan coin deal, a direct competitor to Ripple and XRP. Clayton goes to One River with its $1 billion bet on Bitcoin and ETH. Clayton voted to bring the case and filed it on his last full day. So pause to think about this. Why sue Ripple? Well, from their perspective, it's a direct competitor to what's going on here. Can't you see this? I mean, so fine, yeah, we can't know the hearts and minds of these individuals, but it sure as well lines up. That's perfectly reasonable speculation, which is why this looks so disgusting to everybody. Attorney Deaton continues. Hinman didn't retire from Simpson Thacher, his law firm, per the SEC ethics chief, and he collected $15 million from his ongoing partnerships at Simpson Thacher, which is a member of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, while at the SEC. Hinman agreed to give ETH the free pass requested by the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance law firm Perkins Coie, which was hired by Andreessen Horowitz, which of course is a venture capital firm, and is now a partner at Andreessen Horowitz. Now, Berger, the director of enforcement, helped write the grossly overbroad complaint, absurdly alleging all XRP, including secondary market sales of XRP independent of Ripple, are unregistered securities. He was made a partner at Simpson Thacher, a member of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. So think about this. It just happens to be the case that by writing this very harsh language, a language that sounds as though fraud were committed, even though there's no assertion that fraud was committed because fraud was not committed, you write it up like that, and then you go ahead and skedaddle, and it just happens to be the case that the nonsense BS that you wrote probably makes the people that you're now working for really happy. Just a coincidence here, right? Just another coincidence. It's coincidence after coincidence after coincidence with these people. I'm not buying it. John continues. Bruce Redfern, a banker for JP Morgan before going to the SEC, left days after the lawsuit as well. In March 2021, he was hired by Coinbase. He resigned after 4 months. There are more nuances you pick up on when rereading the Grunfest letter. But when you think how significant digital currencies are, Bitcoin, central bank digital currencies, it's not hyperbole to call the SEC versus Ripple/XRP case as the most significant non-fraud enforcement action since 1946. Who files a case of this magnitude and leaves? They all left. Why? Hashtag it was a weapon. And he's exactly right. It was used as a weapon. And given how piss poor they put the damn thing together, I don't think they were ready to file it. It's more like there's an administration time and it's now or never moment. So they just went ahead and did it. And if it's sloppy and a lot of the arguments didn't really work and you need to rewrite a bunch of stuff or change your arguments, it's fine. They're the SEC. They can do whatever the hell they want. right? These are some arrogant asshats. And so that's what they did. They moved forward with it, and they've had to, well, they did. They amended the original legal complaint and filed a second one in, I'd have to look it up. It may have been February of 2021, somewhere thereabout. They did change it. They were also that was just the first sign. Oh, something might be. Is it perhaps the case that these asshats are not yet prepared? They just wanted to do it, and so if they just wanted to do it, even if it wasn't ready, what does that say about the motive? Personal reasons, much? I tend to think the answer may be yes. And now take a look at this, and this is going to be a perfect segue into this stupid ass argument from Michael Saylor regarding Ethereum being a security. His logic doesn't make sense, and I don't have confidence that he understands what a Howey analysis is, even though he talks about it. Take a look at this tweet first, though, from Attorney Deaton. Some hate XRP because of the founders. Some hate ETH because of the founders. But Bitcoin, ETH, XRP, etc. all constitute alphanumeric code. The tokens themselves are not securities. They are code. Any commodity or asset can be marketed, packaged, offered, and sold as an investment contract. Now let's pause and note, yes, even oranges, which is what started all this. Yes, even gold. Yes, absolutely, pick it. It can be packaged in such a way because it's about the offering. And so when I see what Michael Saylor had to say about this, I'm just sitting here, and he's talking about a Howey analysis. And for him to believe the argument that he's making, he must believe that oranges are securities, or else his entire argument falls apart. But these people don't know what they're talking about, and they say things that harm the entire space. Okay? And this is not to justify Joseph Lubin or anybody else that did the ICO and all that crap, but it is to say that to whatever degree, Ethereum's certainly a lot more decentralized than it was back in the day. It's been adopted. It's not been attacked, at least yet, by the SEC. And it would be an affront to justice for the SEC to come after ETH after all of this time, especially considering that it's certainly a hell of a lot more decentralized than it was before. Now, of course, I think that XRP is more decentralized than ETH, but hey, either way, it's not the point of me saying this. It's more like, why don't we just defend the entire space? Because I'm focusing on that. This is an XRP-centric channel. I'm happy to talk about why we should defend Ethereum. Hell yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So take a look at this from Watcher News titled, Ethereum as a Security MicroStrategy CEO said. A MicroStrategy CEO and vocal Bitcoin supporter, Michael Saylor, in a recent interview on Altcoin Daily, said Ethereum is a security. According to Saylor, Ethereum is not a commodity because of its changeability status. In his argument, commodities like gold, steel, and others do not have an issuer, and their characteristics cannot be changed. Whoa, okay, so let's pause here. Because of its changeability status, is Bitcoin not changeable? Was Bitcoin not ever centralized back in the day when there was one human, which would be Satoshi Nakamoto, mining Bitcoin? Was it centralized back then, or was it decentralized back then, Mr. Saylor? So does it have a changeability status? What if, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but what if a bunch of miners colluded, they decided to engage in a 51% attack? What if they did? What if they colluded? Would that make Bitcoin less decentralized than it is today? I'd argue yes. If somebody colludes to take over, what if it's a strong majority of the miners and they're like, we're now going to do what we want and change any aspect they want about Bitcoin? Might it be a bit less decentralized because a small number of humans were able to take it over? And again, I'm not positing this is going to happen, but just think through it. Just think through it logically. If that happened, which would be a far out scenario, and I admit that, but if it did it, wouldn't that change the status to being a little bit more centralized, right? And if that's the case, is that all that we're looking at here? If something has changeability one direction or another, then it just by the nature of it existing can't be a commodity? Or it can't be a virtual currency? It must be a security? That's really bad logic. That is not the case at all. Even Jay Clayton has talked about this topic. I've covered it before, so I won't get into it. Is explanation of a laundromat token for a laundromat yet to be built versus a laundromat token, which could shift into also having real utility. Changeability is not, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, folks. He doesn't understand at all what he's talking about on this front, but he's saying things that harm the space. That's why it's time to push back when people say crap like this. You can't get away with this. I mean, people shouldn't allow him to get away with it. And what I mean by that is push back against the argument, not against the individual. Challenge the argument, because his argument is really bad. It's a bad argument. He hasn't thought through this. He doesn't, or if he has to some degree, fine. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Piece continues here. Ethereum, on the other hand, has had an initial coin offering and hard forks that can be used to change its characteristics. Look, characteristics can change within any platform. And you want to talk about initial coin offering, well, look, fine. With Bitcoin, I mean, there's mining, like you could try and argue that is, now I'm not, but there are arguments that you could make. And even setting that aside, what about the fact that Satoshi Nakamoto has roughly 1 million Bitcoin just sitting there? We don't know if that's ever going to be sold. You know, what if that happens? Then does Bitcoin suddenly become a security if that happens, however unlikely? What if it actually, because sometimes the unlikely things in life actually happen. The most unlikely seeming things, they do happen. And then in hindsight, like, it does seem obvious. Of course that was going to happen. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but would that then change things? You know, I mean, mining at the inception of Bitcoin and then holding back until it's worth way more and then selling, would that change the status of Bitcoin? Would you then say that Bitcoin is now a security? Is that how your logic works? He doesn't understand the Howey test, but he thinks he does. He cites it. Check this out. Piece continues. Saylor continued that digital asset whose code could be changed in a way that fundamentally affects their value or issuance means it passes the Howey test under the securities law. Sorry, Mr. Saylor, that could happen to Bitcoin. Now, of course, he'd probably get around it by arguing, well, whatever that new version is, isn't Bitcoin. Oh, okay. Well, then that would be true of XRP or Ethereum or pick your coin. Like, the arguments fall apart. If you just put him under like the slightest ounce of pressure, his entire house of card argument just completely falls apart. You know what he should be looking at is the actual Howey test, not the made-up one that he's pretending matters. The four-pronged Howey test. Number 1, investment of money. 2, with the expectations of profit. 3, through a common enterprise. 4, on the efforts of others. How about that? How about those 4? And by the way, all 4 of those prongs must be passed. He doesn't know what the hell he is talking about. It really grinds my gears, folks. But if something is decentralized, if a cryptocurrency is decentralized, then as Attorney Deaton's been hammering the point home, and I've been doing my best to get the point out there too so that everybody understands it, if something was sold as a security, fine. That doesn't mean the asset itself is a security, just like oranges in the Howey case didn't mean that oranges or orange groves were securities. Of course not. The SEC never argued that, just like XRP or ETH or Bitcoin. None of them are securities by the nature of them existing. It's about how they're packaged. That's it. And so if something was sold as a security, but then it gets adopted and then becomes decentralized, and there's no special controls over that network, even from the issuer, even if they did commit some sort of securities violation, well, fine, but at some point you must recognize moving forward that the damn asset itself is no longer part of such a packaging because it's decentralized and they can't control it any longer. It's so obvious. This really steams my vegetables, folks. Rant over. I feel a lot better now. That was good. That was good. I tell you, it's like cathartic, man. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.